Hello, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Camp, President and CEO of the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce, here for a candidate interview with Josh Turek. Josh, thanks for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, Josh, you're running for the state legislature to occupy the seat being vacated by Representative McConkey. So, the first question I have for you is, what is the top issue that Council Bluffs and Southwest Iowa are facing, and how will you address it in the legislature if elected?
Sure. Well, first, I think it's really important to differentiate between short-term and long-term problems. I think that we all kind of end up getting stuck in this mode of basically stuck to the political cycle of every 2 years, and we don't have any sort of long-term goals. And so certainly short term, I think I'd be obtuse if I didn't recognize that probably the thing that most people are dealing with short term is the price of gas and inflation. Certainly with gas, I think that we should do everything we can bipartisanly, whether that's E15 over the course of the summer, whether that's gas tax holiday, whether that's opening up strategic reserves, just because it is such a significant increase in such a short period of time. And people are really struggling with that. I mean, people are really struggling to make ends meet. And with inflation as well, I think that we've done a poor job at the Fed at a national level, certainly not a state level, of getting in front of this. And I think that a lot of the policies, certainly with like quantitative easing, in dumping such significant amount of money in there, some of that with 0% interest, I think that benefited people that ended up having stocks or possibly assets like homes, but to your average person and to your middle class, your blue collar worker, what has taken place with the inflation has certainly not been positive, and we need to do everything we can to get in front of that. Longer term issues and issues I think that are relevant to Southwest Iowa and Council Bluffs and the people of Carter Lake. First and foremost, I think is education. I think we have done a terrible job of properly funding, critically defunding our education system. I think if you look at my district in particular, District 20, and you look at the numbers of something like Thomas Jefferson High School, and you see that it is a 1 out of 10 for overall high school levels, which is the lowest level that is possible. It's also a 1 out of 10 in terms of college preparation. And I think by every metric, the greatest determination of future success in life is access to quality education. And I think in Council Bluffs in particular, we're doing a terrible job of that. And honestly, at a state level as well, Iowa used to be, the gold standard of education. We were #1 Iowa Basic Skills Test, and year after year we continue to drop. And now we're to like number 26. And I think that is just a failure. I think we're just doing an enormous disservice to an entire generation of Iowans. And so I think that's something that needs to be dealt with, and is one of the foremost issues in my campaign. Secondly, I think is healthcare. I think it's something that all of us recognize that is broken, and we have so many people that are either no healthcare or underinsured. We have 25% of Iowans that would have pre-existing health conditions that they don't even qualify to even get insurance. And, I see it every single day. I work for a mobility device company that provides, wheelchairs and power wheelchairs for individuals. I work with, at a muscular dystrophy clinic and an ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease clinic, and just seeing over and over and over what these managed care organizations have done at a state level in these private healthcare organizations. And it's honestly, it's just immoral and it's criminal. And my personal belief that healthcare just should not be for the rich and for the elite. And I think that there are some real common sense things that we can do to put into place to make it better for everyone. And, particularly being a member of the disabled community myself, I just see it at our state level. We've got 20,000 disabled individuals that are on a waiting list right now, just waiting to be seen for medical equipment that they desperately need. Denials are up over 1,000%. Again, that is not a way that a state should be run. and we can improve that. Along with healthcare is a reduction in pharmaceutical costs. I think that there's some common sense things that we can do at a legislative level to improve that space as well. So those are some of the things that I think in the short term and the long term that we need to address.
Well, Josh, I really love the fact that you hit on the two biggest pieces of the budget as well, with the health, with education and health.
Absolutely.
And I also love that you threw the term quantitative easing in there too. So I appreciate that. You hit on most of these, but I did want to give you just an opportunity if you had other things that you wanted to make sure you could touch on. Do you see other statewide issues that need to be addressed that you didn't talk about in the previous questions?
Well, if that's a different question, I think that, if we're talking about Southwest Iowa and Council Bluffs, it's a very different situation than what we're talking about statewide. In terms of Council Bluffs, we are just an urban area. Statewide, we're a very rural state. And so some of the issues that are affecting us as a state, honestly, first and foremost, I feel like anyone that travels, and I travel for my job, I go through all of Western Iowa, and you'll go see, and you'll see our rural community just being decimated. And I think first and foremost is we have to have a recognition of what these large multinational corporations are doing. They're essentially just acting as vacuums for our, for the rural communities and just decimating them. Individuals just leave; they feel like they've got no hope, and so that's something that has to be recognized. We have to have policies in place to benefit small businesses, which that's the real heartbeat of the communities, the rural communities, and of the state. And we need to make sure that these large multinational corporations aren't just coming in and acting as vacuums, and that they're paying their fair share in doing their part. So that would be first and foremost, is to put policies into place to benefit small communities in these smaller rural communities, along with some of the things that I touched on, which is like education. I think that we've got, coming up, we are going to have to deal with this voucher deal that the governor wants to see put place, which luckily was struck down because we had some common sense Republicans from rural communities that recognized that this would just absolutely decimate the rural school districts. And in our budget, we raised education funding by 2%. I mean, anyone can recognize that by looking at what's going on with inflation, that's a reduction. And so, we have to properly fund education, and that's in rural communities, just like it is here in Council Bluffs. Another one, like I touched on, healthcare. We are seeing healthcare facilities and hospitals and childcare facilities, especially in these rural communities, just disappear. Basically, now from Council Bluffs all the way to Des Moines, we have 2 hospital facilities, and so we've got to do a better job of recognizing that and taking care of that. Another thing is like infrastructure in the state of Iowa. I mean, we're 49th out of 50 in terms of like our bridges and roads, and even in terms of, I know that my opponent, one of her big issues is flooding. And look, 100%, I'm actually in favor of that. She was talking about maybe having a coalition of states to recognize this flooding issue, because clearly, just as Iowa, as the river comes down, we need multiple states. Well, we have that. We have the federal government, and that's what it's there to do. And I think the infrastructure bills, much like what was actually passed, where they're earmarking 1.5 billion in terms of infrastructure, and particularly for flooding, I think that is a positive thing. And I think that across the board, that's what we should be doing. That's going to generate better jobs. That's going to generate better communities. That is a long-term investment into our children, but for everyone, schools, hospitals, roads. That's what we should be focusing on as Iowans, to improve the state for everyone.
One thing that's important to note too, this is specifically for transportation infrastructure, but the DOT Commission is approving kind of the distribution and funding mechanism and plan for those IIJA, those Infrastructure Investment and Job Acts, at their July meeting. So that's going to be pivotal as well. Moving on to the next question, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for the state of Iowa going forward?
I think Iowa has a lot of opportunities, honestly. You look at our centralized location. I think that as you look at the world population continuing to grow, I think that we have an enormous opportunity to be the breadbasket and the breadwinners, along with energy. That's not going away. Ethanol, all the above. As long as we can, sustainably continue to do intelligent things with our farming communities, that is going to be, continuously be more and more valuable. Some other areas, I think that Iowa has a great opportunity as well to be a leader in like clean, sustainable energy. I think, as I touched on with the gas, we can look at the short-term issues with that and some short-term things we can do. But I think long-term, we all can recognize that this is not a problem that's going away. We are already leading the entire world in how much gas we're pumping in natural gas and as well in oil, and yet look at the price of gas. We've already got enormous amount of permits. This isn't going to be a situation where we can just drill our way out of this. And I think that Iowa has an opportunity, whether it's through windmills or solar power or whatever. We have a great opportunity to actually be a leader in this, revolution, which long term is going to benefit, again, everyone. Touching as I did as well on infrastructure, improving bridges, roads, schools, hospitals. That's where we should be putting our investment, because that's going to be, again, improvement in jobs, and just it's going to be the tide that's going to raise all boats across the board. So that's what I would say. And lastly, I think another, as I touched on, I think we have a great opportunity in Iowa to get back to where we once were, to actually lead the nation in education. And when we do that, we will see the talent level in Iowa continue to grow, and that will inevitably lead to better jobs and better communities, and everyone, again, making Iowa a better place for everyone across the board.
And as you look at doing and working towards those opportunities and such, how would you envision working with the chamber or just the business community in general in doing so?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost is I think I need to be engaged. I think engage and listening. I think that one thing that we have gotten wrong with our legislators is they're always asking us, what's our opinion on something? How do I feel about this issue, about that issue? I feel like it's the reverse. I feel like I'm there to represent you. You tell me what are the issues that you're feeling, and particularly with, the business community. Ultimately, you cannot know everything about every issue. And so a really, really important process of being, a good legislator is being able to engage with the community. If that's showing up to meetings, if that's people having access to my email, to my phone number, but being able to listen and understand these are the issues that we're dealing with. This is how we think that you need to proceed. I think that's first and foremost. And secondly, I think to focus on legislation that's going to be pro-business and, pro-small business. I think that is enormously important, to go in there with that kind of attitude of how can we make this better? Focus on that type of legislation.
And along those lines too, as we look ahead to this past session and then even going forward, as a business advocacy organization, as you can imagine, our number one issue is workforce and talent. Placemaking and quality of life is becoming more and more important in how it ties into that workforce and talent attraction and retention. And then economic development assistance mechanisms, things like TIF that sometimes come up that are super important, especially for us as a border community, that make us more competitive than Omaha. So how would you work to address some of those issues? And it touches on some of the things you just mentioned, and partner with the business community to do so.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I think that we can recognize, particularly if we're just going to talk about like Council Bluffs and Carter Lake, I think that inevitably better conditions are going to lead to better jobs, and that's going to lead to talent want to be here. I think that we all can recognize as individuals born and raised here in Council Bluffs that we are seen as kind of like the little stepbrother to Omaha, and oftentimes we end up having like a talent drain over to Omaha. But some of the things that I've touched on, which is improving our education system. I know many, many individuals, including family members, that have left Council Bluffs to go to Omaha. And one of the primary reasons was just so that their kids had access to better public schools. And so when we improve conditions across the board, that's going to allow for more individuals to want to live here in Council Bluffs and live here in Omaha. Beyond that, I think within the business community, I think, again, putting in policies that make sure that we're making it easier for businesses to do their job, and to, to be free of unnecessary regulation or permits. I think undue, frivolous lawsuits, things like that, things that are going to benefit the business community. I think that oftentimes we get in kind of this zero sum idea that you can't be pro labor and also pro business. I think that that is foolish as well. I think that we can have good conditions for laborers and also be pro business. And again, I think it's just having common sense ideas and finding the best ideas, regardless of those Republican ideas, Democrat ideas, independent ideas, and putting those forth and saying, let's make sure that this is an environment where businesses can thrive, particularly small businesses, because that is the heartbeat of every community.
Well, so yes, it most definitely is, especially when the technical definition is 500 and less employees. So yeah, they definitely are. And we saw that especially during COVID and how we dealt with and came out of that. The next question deals with just what are some your skill set and what do you see as some unique skills that you would bring to the position if elected?
Sure. Well, for those of you out there that don't know me, I will let you know my background a little bit. First, I was born and raised here in Council Bluffs. I'm born with spina bifida, so I'm a member of the disabled community. I've been in a wheelchair my whole life. And I grew up very poor, to very humble means, to, a working family, multiple kids, had the wrong color lunch tickets. And, we shared clothes going forward. I was lucky enough to be exposed to adaptive sports and wheelchair basketball and excelled in it. I've gone on to play professional wheelchair basketball and had, the enormous opportunity to basically play basketball on every continent on Earth besides Antarctica. I've been able to play professionally in Italy and Spain and in France. I've been had the enormous honor to represent the United States in 4 Paralympic Games and won 2 gold medals. And I think that being involved in team sports obviously teaches you an enormous amount about failure. I mean, I was cut 6 straight years from the national team and kept coming back. Hard work, discipline. It teaches you, how to work within a team, how to be motivated. All of these things that I think are enormously important, that all of us should be striving for, but I think are enormously important in our leaders. Beyond that, beyond just the fact that I've participated in high level sports and represented, Council Bluffs at an Olympic level. I also think that it's important to be well traveled. I've lived in multiple places and seen different things. I've seen how different healthcare systems operate, how that affects, the disabled communities and in the community at large. I've seen the good and the bad. I think that too often as Americans, we will say America is the greatest country on the earth. Well, I certainly believe that, but I also believe that it's the greatest country on earth for those that are rich, but it may not be the greatest country on the earth for, the have-nots. And I think that having the ability to have seen so many different places and experiencing so many different things, I think gives me a unique perspective and a unique opportunity of some ideas that we could incorporate here at, a state level, grassroots level. Beyond that, I am educated. I have a bachelor's degree in history from Southwest Minnesota State. I have a master's degree in business administration. I also, my wife is an immigrant. She is half Black and half Hispanic. She is a Dominican by birth and Spanish by passport. We met in Madrid, Spain. We had the opportunity, honestly, to live anywhere, really. I mean, we could have stayed in Europe. We could have stayed in Madrid. But yet I chose to come back home here to Council Bluffs, Iowa. And this was one of the main reasons, is that I wanted to come back to my community and make a positive difference. I also have engaged in the community now that I'm here. I work in a for-profit space. I work for a mobility device provider. Like I said, we provide wheelchairs and power wheelchairs to individuals, part of the disabled community, and I'm involved in that process. On a nonprofit level, I am a board member and a director with the Ryan Martin Foundation, which we provide free camps to children, both here and abroad, for the disabled community, which is a great thing. So I'm involved in the for-profit space, the nonprofit space. I'm also a small business owner. Me and my wife, we started a company that we provide home adaptations and carpet and flooring. And so in every aspect, I'm integrated within the community, and bilingual. I think that it's important that I understand some of these other minority groups, whether it's the disabled community or the Black community, the Hispanic community. And I think this is exactly the type of people that have been successful. We should be sending our best and brightest in individuals. And I come from an apolitical background. Like, this isn't like the goal of my lifetime to come and enter this space. I was asked to do it, and I'm happy to do it. The same way that I view this, I view it public service, my civic duty. I don't like the way that politics have become so toxic. And I think it's important that we have some intelligent, thoughtful people to enter, particularly at grassroots state level politics.
Thank you. That was a very good answer, and definitely gave us a very good idea of who you are and what you stand for. So I appreciate that. And then the last question I like to ask is kind of cliche, but it always is something we have to throw out there too, just going into elections, is what sets you apart and why should voters cast a ballot for you in the upcoming election?
Sure. A lot is what I just touched on, my story, my background, but more than that, the reasons why I'm running. I think that we all can recognize that, nationally, even at a local level, politics is going the wrong direction. It's becoming too extreme. It's becoming too toxic. We're vilifying the other side. It's becoming tribalism, honestly. And I don't want to be that type of person. I'm not a tribalist. Again, I come from an apolitical background. I don't care if it's a Democrat idea, Republican idea. I want the best ideas out there. And I think that people should vote for the man, not the party. And I want to be a source of positivity. I want to be a source of inspiration. And again, just a thoughtful, intelligent individual that's going to go out there and with the best of intentions, not for any sort of personal gain. There's no real financial incentive to enter this space. I'm going in there because we have enough representation for the 1%ers, for the large corporations, for those individuals. I'm going in there because we need to get back to this kind of old school liberal idea of I'm out there for the blue collar workers and for the middle class and fighting for them, again, to make America better for everyone and to make Iowa better for
And it goes back to an Iowan that just popped into my mind very much so, would be Senator Tom Harkin, was someone that kind of really embodied that.
So 100%. And I will say that Senator Tom Harkin is one of my political heroes. And that, if it wasn't for someone like him, that was basically the father of the American with Disabilities Act, I would never be in a position that I'm in as a member of the disabled community, because I wouldn't have had the access to education and, employment and even just basic public transportation. And so there is government at its finest, where you're making a policy which absolutely is making a positive difference for many individuals, disabled community, 15% of the population. That is the type of legislator that I want to be. Someone that people can say, that's Josh Turek. That is a great guy. And I am proud of him representing Council Bluffs. And he's doing positive things for people, for the community, to leave this place better than the way he found it. That's the type of person I am. And I hope that people will vote for me.
Well, thank you, Josh. We can definitely see that you are passionate about this. I am very much so as well. My background is political science, and I have a very much passion for it too. So I always appreciate when I see someone who's also passionate about it. So thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.